everyone. Welcome to our second episode of UPAWdcast. This podcast is brought to you by students at Western University as part of the Undergraduate Pathology Alliance at Western, or UPAW for short. Today, we are eager to introduce Noah Matsakawo as our guest on the podcast. Noah is currently a fourth-year student here at Western, completing a double major in One Health and Pathology, and currently works as a USC science counselor.
Thanks, Noah, for being here with us today. The first question we have for today is tell us a bit about yourself, kind of what your path was throughout your undergrad, and maybe if there's a fun fact that you're open to sharing with us.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for inviting me to the show today. I'm so happy to get to share some of my experience with One Health and Path. So for my path throughout undergraduate, so I started in first year, the year 2021. And my first year I was in Elgin Hall on the med sci floor. So all my peers were all in med sci, which is pretty cool. I got the chance to be the fire warden for the floor, which is a super exciting opportunity. But that was actually the only thing that I got to be a part of in my first year. So other than that, I didn't really get too involved in extracurriculars in my first year, which moving on to upper years, I realized was a missed opportunity, but I was able to kind of make that up. In my first year of academics, we had to take the basic chemistry, the basic sciences. So we did chemistry, biology, physics, math, which was calculus first semester, and Apple Math second semester, and one elective which first semester I had psychology and second semester I had sociology, which is a cool mix because both of those are represented in the MCAT. One unfortunate thing that happened at the end of my first year was I did not achieve a med sci pass in Apple Math. So getting below a 60% in Apple Math but still passing the course unfortunately made me have to drop out of medical sciences, which was an unfortunate incident. But moving on to today, I was still able to make it back. So that's something I worked hard on, especially in that summer after second year. Taking it online over the summer, I was able to achieve a solid grade and be able to make it back into that competitive pool. And for third year, I was able to be back and be able to get into this honors double major. So now in fourth year, I kind of really expanded my horizons. This year, I've been able to be a residence soft, part of the leadership soft team for Baton after being on the Lumgan soft team the past 2 years, as well as being a president and co-founder of Pangea Social Club here at Western, a multicultural social club at that, and as well as being elected one of the USC science counselors, which serves as advocacy source for the Science Student Council to the University Students Council. So a fun fact about me is I love soccer. Even though my meniscus isn't doing too hot right now, so I had a little sprain in there. I still love to play and still kind of overcome that. So that's a fun fact about me.
Great,
Awesome.
awesome.
Were there any specific reasons that you chose to major in One Health and Pathology, or anything that drew you to these majors in particular?
Yeah, so I think something that really drew me to this major, especially more on the One Health side, was seeing sociology, seeing how those social determinants of health ultimately results in unfortunate health situations, and seeing those like racial implications and those social implications of different marginalized groups. So that made me see that One Health is something that considers more than just the practical sciences. It really drew me into that side of it, as well as thinking of the environment. I've always been someone who loved sustainability efforts and loved. I remember in my elementary school, I was part of the eco council, so that's something I really loved. And so being able to learn about that and kind of intertwine that with a career in medicine was really attractive to me as well. But coming from the competitive pool, as I mentioned earlier, it made it a little difficult to just be in One Health. And pathology and One Health are part of the same department here at Western. So even though I couldn't get honors specialization in One Health, I was able to get a double major in One Health and pathology. So I'd say that One Health really drew me in more, but pathology is such an important study. Like I love to learn about it. And after learning about it, I recently started watching Dr. House on Netflix. And every time I watch, I'm always able to I love to click on to what they're talking about. And when they're talking about all the different factors or all the different things that they notice, I love to like kind of join in from my side of the screen. So I really have been enjoying the pathology side, but I'd say it initially was the One Health that really brought me in.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I totally relate to what you said about things you learn in class, being able to pick up on those things if you see
Mhm.
them, in your daily life. I think that's super cool because it's like, oh, I saw that
Yeah,
in class, or like I learned about that.
100%.
The next question we have is if you could walk us through what a typical day looks like for you in fourth year. Doesn't have to be a super eventful day, but just kind of what could go on in the mornings or in the afternoons.
Okay, yeah. So a typical day for me, every day is really different just because I have lots of bi-weekly meetings, lots of floor meetings, LST meetings, and then soft team meetings and university affairs meeting for the role of us USC science counselor and science council meetings and then regular USC meetings and Pangea meetings. So there's a lot of meetings with all the different kind of extracurriculars I'm part of, and those kind of fluctuate bi-weekly. But I'd say basically what a day looks like for me is wake up in the morning, grab a cup of coffee, and then kind of go at the day. News typically I'll go to campus earlier in the day, and then just go to classes, study, and then in the evening I'll end up having one type of meeting or another, or maybe two, or maybe three. You never really know. But yeah, I'd say that's what a typical day looks like for me. Making sure I can pack a lunch the night before so I can bring it to school and microwave it and then eat. So actually, as in my role as a USC counselor, that's something I've really been advocating for, just microwaves in the UCC. Luckily, science students have been able to see more microwaves in outside right outside Taylor Library, brought to you by the Science Student Council, and Mauritius kind of led that effort there. So President Mauritius, we commend you. Another big win that we're seeing is there's potential for microwaves in the UCC, so that's pretty cool. A lot goes out in the day, and just managing that and keeping a solid schedule so that I can go through the day.
No, I agree. I think it's super important, especially when you get to upper years and your schedule gets busier and busier. Like you want to keep organized. And I know if it's not on my calendar, then I'm going to forget about it. So I can definitely relate there. Kind of circling back to One Health and pathology, how do you think understanding pathology and One Health together can improve patient and global health as like a whole?
Yeah, so for this question, what I'd say is that pathology you learn the diseases and you learn some of the factors that cause the diseases. And with One Health, you look at from a holistic sense what can cause these diseases and whether that's human pressures, like economic, socio-economic, like social factors. We learn about environmental factors, which can sometimes be anthropogenic, like are humans causing pollution, which is increasing this disease. You also learn about animal causes, which animals can be vectors for disease as well as we can give the disease to animals and it can be a zoonotic case. So I think, especially after the rise of COVID-19, it really emphasizes the need to have a One Health perspective because COVID-19 ultimately most likely came from an animal, and being able to understand that and understand how we can control animals so that something like COVID-19 doesn't happen again is super important. And it really emphasizes that One Health and pathology approach mix. And I think that's the case for many other diseases because many other diseases may be higher at risk because of environmental degradation or any environmental cause. So having that approach of looking at the One Health of it and then applying that to understand pathology can really help us. And from a global and public health perspective, it's really important to really look at all the factors that are causing the disease. And some of the bigger changes are going to be a lot more impactful. So if you can cause a change to a country by changing the policy, that's going to be a lot more impactful than kind of the approach of having one doctor tell one person to change their ways. So I'll go a little bit deeper into that because that's kind of a big concept that Dr. Frisbee teaches us in One Health. So typically, how our approach to healthcare is, one doctor will tell one person to take one medication, which has a barrier, but it's a lot easier than trying to have a societal change, which can have a lot bigger of an impact. So that's kind of a big approach that One Health teaches you, and I really value that, and I think that's super important to have for anybody studying pathology, and really emphasizes the point of education and some of these things. Like you need to have a societal change to really have a beneficial and more solidified public health and global health system.
Great. I think that's a really good answer. I know we're only halfway through fourth year, but throughout your third year and some of fourth year, I know you mentioned the COVID-19 example for, a disease process that's related to One Health and pathology as well. Is there anything surprising or fascinating that you've learned about during your pathology or One Health studies?
Yeah, so something I learned about just yesterday and then our previous One Health class, which is about policy and biosciences, is really that some of these stuff that we're trying to say and some of these policies that we're trying to follow really don't have an answer and really needs to be treated case by case. So, for example, the freedom of speech is something that we talked about for now two tutorials, and getting to define what that freedom looks like is super important because that has implications ultimately into how people talk about diseases, people can talk about COVID, and that has implications into censorship, which we did see a lot of during COVID, and fact checking, especially with all the changes that are going around in that sense. So that was a really interesting thing to hear about because that's not really something that you consider in some of the other courses. So hearing about like, is it right that we censor information and that we add fact checkers to information who might not have the vested interest in learning the facts? I think that's something I really learned in the One Health side. Now on the pathology side, I think something that's really interesting to learn is just learning all the different types of diseases and kind of learning them fast. I think that was pretty cool. Like just having a little bit of knowledge on each one, so that when they ultimately come up through that show like Doctor House, or if your family member was involved, you kind of have that background information and you kind of have that way of knowing and intuition that you can speak on it properly.
No, I think that's really interesting because the way that people seem to be getting a lot of their information and knowledge is from social media. So I think it is really important to talk about like fact checking and that kind of stuff. But kind of leading on to, I know we talked about you're halfway through your fourth year, but so far, what's been the most rewarding part of your fourth year studies, and what challenges have you had to overcome maybe over the past semester or even maybe third year?
Yeah, so I say the most rewarding part of my fourth year studies is really just getting involved with the University Students Council. Like I thought that was a super cool experience and be able to advocate in that way, especially to the University Students Council. And that kind of led me to the opportunity to go to the Ontario University Student Alliance, where I was able to advocate for Western students at large and make sure that prospective Western students is heard at Queen's Park. So that was a pretty cool experience. That was really rewarding. And having that kind of background and knowledge in One Health, I'd say really does provide benefit because one of the papers that we reviewed was environmental sustainability, and really understanding how environmental sustainability can impact health and is really correlated in my mind is made me even more passionate with that paper and reviewing the policy there. So that's something that I found really rewarding in my fourth year. So challenges I had to overcome though is what I'd say is just being almost too busy. It feels like sometimes. Sometimes it feels like I'll need to put schoolwork on the back burner just to kind of handle all my extracurriculars, which is an unfortunate situation. But I think making sure everything's in the calendar, making sure I can allocate time to each thing and not taking on extra responsibilities if I don't need to, I'm able to juggle all of that and make it work and make sure I can put my fullest efforts in each thing I take part in.
Yeah, definitely. Shrey also mentioned earlier, staying organized, staying on top of things, using your calendar. I agree, super important. Our last question for today is looking ahead, maybe in the future, are there specific areas in pathology or One Health or careers that might be excited for or you might want to explore further, after fourth year, after graduation?
Yeah, so one that I was pretty recently looking at towards the end goal is municipal administrative health. And those types of positions, what you're a doctor and someone who's practiced in the field who can actually make changes about the whole municipal system of the healthcare. So I thought that was a pretty cool role. And that's something I've been looking into. I think to get there though, I'd want to go to med school and become a family doctor and just practice and learn about different types of situations and really have a full and holistic understanding of the healthcare system. But that's a really cool opportunity that I recently came upon me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think that's super cool.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on to our podcast, Noah. It was really insightful to have you here and learn about more of pathology and One Health. And I hope you had a good time. I enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners will as well.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys so much for having me. That means a lot. Yo, go UPod.
Thanks again.